As I look in the mirror, a broken woman I see, broken down by the streets of life's journey. That broken woman is me, so I take me a little ride. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life with Anita. So, I actually had got an email that made me want to read more and learn more about this story. The story is Dishaye Stevenson, and she was killed by her husband, who she was taking care of. He was very narcissistic, abusive in several ways to her. And she still tried to love him with her all, and she still tried to take care of him and be there for him as a good wife. Um, the more I got information about the story, the more that I was watching a lot of different things. It's very hurtful when you love someone with your all, and then they still find some way to abuse you, to harm you. So, Dishaye Stevenson was a very big entrepreneur. She was successful here in Dallas, Texas. Um, and she had just made a name for herself. She took care of her family, she took care of her mom, her daughter. She was a very loving and kind person. And when I watched the media coverage and I watched how her sister and other people spoke of her, and then myself, as I am hosting my first annual domestic violence dinner, October 19th, a member of her family actually saw my event and they reached out to me to be a part of it. And I did not know anything about the story. I didn't know their husband had killed her in Dallas, Texas last year, and that it had made the news, and it was a very big story. So I went and did a lot of my research yesterday once I had been made aware of it. And as you all know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And as me being a survivor a few months ago, and finally being out of that after years of suffering domestic violence, I felt the need to do an episode of my podcast about her story, because you just never know. And people think, well, once you marry somebody, it's all peaches and cream. And I watched a lot of the videos where she was gifting her husband and doing things for him and taking care of him. And he still, when she wanted to leave him because he was basically draining her, which is something that narcissists are known to do, because I just divorced a narcissist in February. Narcissistic abusers are one of the worst kind, because they will physically abuse you, mentally abuse you, emotionally abuse you. And it's so draining and drastic that when you get out, it takes a lot of time to recover. So I just got away from my narcissistic abuser 4 months ago, right? A little less than 4 months ago. Um, and I had been around him for years, though, going through the same traumatic abuse. And I watched a lot of the videos of Dishaye, and I watched a lot of posts of how she was posting about her husband and just speaking life and greatness into him, and how much she loved him and how much she was there for him. And you could tell when you watch them in the videos. So this is kind of what I'll explain a little bit about to you, what it's like being with a narcissist, right? So narcissists will take everything that you have, you can give them the world, and it still won't be good enough. They will play a role for a certain amount of time, but their mask eventually falls off. So, like my narcissist, because he met me and I was in a vulnerable state years ago, right? He seemed like the best man. So even though he was abusing me physically, and he was, sneaking behind my back and texting other women, doing bad things in the beginning, because I was unhealed and I was still vulnerable, it seemed like the best idea to just deal with this man, because I felt like, well, I'm nice, I'm kind, I love him. Over time, it'll get better, right? And if you look at how Dishaye's story went, it looked like over time she probably believed that he would get better, and she felt like, well, she's the wife and he'll change. Um, I was somebody's wife, right? And I was married to him for 4 years, right? We went to Vegas, got married, and we had this blended family. And I was like, man, what can go wrong, right? But a lot of times a narcissist is always with you, somebody else, they eyeing somebody else. That's just who they are, right? And
Um, something, it just like, it triggered me, but it also resonated with me. I also seen how Dishaye would post things and she would say that she's not cheating, she's not doing this, she's not doing that. And what that made me remember was narcissists are good at that. They will accuse you of the very thing that they're doing, right? Or they will accuse you of being something that they actually are. So my ex-husband that I divorced in February, he would always say, well, you're crazy, but it would be him that was crazy and abusive. He would say, oh, you're out here with all these men, you're cheating, you're this, you're that, but it was actually him that constantly was cheating on me. So narcissists have this thing where they will try to take away your freedom. They are known to isolate, which is a lot of interviews I also saw and a lot of stories I was reading about the Dishaye Stevenson story was, people just would assume that a lot of times when she didn't make contact, that she was just busy because she was an entrepreneur, she was successful. But a lot of times, narcissists want to isolate you, right? So there's nobody around you. So um, I keep reverting back to my story because it's so similar to Deshaye's, right? Unfortunately, Deshaye was murdered by her husband when she wanted to finally leave him. Now, I'll tell you something, narcissists don't like for you to give up and leave them and be just done and wash your hands with them. Now, the only reason why my narcissist was stopped and I walked away with my life is because my narcissist, my ex husband, he went to jail. And he went to jail. And then the female that he was already cheating on me with before he went to jail, when he was getting out of jail, she gave him a place to stay and took him back, took him back. Now, what you have to understand is that there's always some kind of supply with the narcissist, right? The narcissist is never happy because the narcissist is not happy within themselves. And when I look at the story of Dishaye, you see how she gave her husband all these things. She bought him all this stuff, gave him all this money, right? And it still didn't stop him from cheating, from treating her bad, from trying to isolate her and make her feel like she was completely drained. And my heart and my condolences, even though it's a year later, goes out to her family because what you don't understand is that domestic violence is real. Spouses who are unhinged, narcissists who are unhinged, this is very real. Um, there are so many times, and I ended up writing a book about what happened to me. There were so many times that my ex-husband tried to take my life. There were so many times that he would lie to people and tell people that what he was doing to me wasn't happening, even though it was to protect his own image, right? I'm almost certain that my narcissist is somewhere right now with the person that he's with, and she thinks it's a-okay and everything's perfect, and she doesn't understand that it's only a matter of time before she suffers what I did, right? Because narcissists don't change overnight. So that's just what that is. And to see the way that he basically, from the story, he asked Deshaye to meet him. Okay, they were on rocky terms at the time. She was ready to pretty much call it quits. Um, Deshaye actually went to go meet her husband, and they met in the parking lot. She got in his car and decided to talk to him. And they began driving, and next thing you know, he shot her in the chest and then threw her out the car. The family was wondering where she was because she wasn't answering her phone. The husband actually ran into her brother and her relatives, and they were like, well, have you talked to Dishaye? Have you seen her? And he blatantly told them no, even though he had just killed her and threw her on the side of the road. So that's very similar to how narcissists are. Narcissists will do some of the most horrific, heinous things to you, and they will go in front of other people as though they did none of these things to you. And they will tell everybody. One of the narcissist's favorite things to say is that a lot of times they'll say, my spouse is crazy or my ex was crazy. But it's not really that we're crazy. It's just that they do something called reactive abuse, right? So reactive abuse is me as the victim. Okay, so my ex-husband would do things like this. He purposely provoked me to have an angry reaction, and then he'd take his phone out and record videos of me. Or he would purposely put drugs in my system and then record me and then tell people I'm crazy, but he would never tell people the heinous things that he did prior to that caused me to look like that on video, right? That's a thing that narcissists are widely known for. And I've heard other women tell me this about the narcissists that they were with, that narcissist has this thing where they create this portfolio about their victims. And their victims, there's always something wrong with the victim and not the narcissist, right? So the narcissist will either do videos or they'll tell these stories, and it's like you're the worst person in the world. Nobody knows that you're actually a victim that was suffering. And I'm very certain that it was a lot that Dishaye was holding in, and so she felt like her best option probably was just to leave and get out of it, and then it would all go away. But you have to understand, sometimes victims make it out, sometimes they don't. A lot of times it's best if you can get away from your narcissistic abuser or your abuser just in general. If you can get away from that, it's best to escape it because your life is so precious. There's nothing more important than your life. I thank God every day that I wake up now and I have peace that I am now away from my ex-husband for the rest of my life, that I escape with my life to go on to be the great woman that I am, and I can thrive again, and I'm healing and I'm doing better and things are good for me. Because there's so many times where he made attempts on my life and I thought I was not going to survive it. There's so many times I feared that my children or my mother would get a call that he had killed me because he was that much of a vicious, evil, vile person. And although I'm still healing and I'm working on this forgiveness aspect of it, as it being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I still understand and I still stress to people, get out of any relationship that is destroying your mental health, your peace, your emotional state, your physical state. Nobody and no relationship is worth that. If you can escape something that is harming you, you cannot feel bad for that abuser. You cannot take them back. And then what another thing I want to say to women, if you know a man has put his hands on another woman and he's been physically abusive to that woman and he's disrespected her, or he's messed around with you while he was with her and he's disrespecting her, trying to make you feel good, I stress this to my women who have dealt with that, who are dealing with that. He's not the one for you. That's not the love of your life. Any man that will disrespect another woman to be with you, that man does not love you. You are basically a pawn. You are basically somebody that he's just dealing with as a rebound. So never dumb yourself down to the point where you're dealing with a man that has a history of abusing women. No matter what form he has abused women in before, as a woman, you should know that you deserve better than that. You should not settle for something like that. So me, if I was to meet a man and this man had been known to physically abuse women or mentally or emotionally abuse women or treat women bad, I, as a woman that has values, that has morals, I would not associate myself with that man. So if I would have knew certain things about my ex-husband prior to being actually with him and married to him at that point, I probably would have opted out of dealing with him at all. Because any man that will put his hands on a woman and then go lay up with another woman, and the woman knows that this is what he's done and she's still okay with that, that says a lot about her and her character as well. Because what you align and attach to says a lot about you as a person. And so I don't know who I'm talking to, but never dumb yourself down to the point where you become desperate for a man, that you allow any man to lay in your bed, that you allow any man to be with you, because a man's past often defines his pattern. And when you are dealing with a man that has a pattern of abusing women in different forms, this is something that he's been doing, a pattern. This is what he's been taught as well. The chances that he won't do it to you are very slim to none. So what I want to say on this episode is, as I get ready to end, my condolences to the Dishaye Stevenson family. I'm sorry for your loss. Domestic violence happens so much around the world. So many women go through it, and very few live to tell about it. There's a lot of women who die at the hands of their abuser. And unfortunately, it's sad. So when us women make it out and we survive, that's why we go on to tell our stories to impact and help others. The reason why I wrote my book and I go out and I speak to people is because I want to touch those people that it may be somebody in a crowd that I go speak to, and this woman is dealing with something at home and she's trying to find out how to get out of it. But maybe me going to go speak and talk in that crowd, she's listening, and now her discernment and her decision making has shifted. Her mindset has shifted to help her allow her to leave the situation. So that's just what I want to stress before I end this episode. Love yourself enough to know you deserve better. And this story, it touched my heart. It also triggered me because to be a victim is now a survivor of domestic violence, and to see how this woman was so good to a man, and he at the end would do something so heinous like kill this woman, throw her on the side of the road. It was terrifying. So get out. No relationship is worth your life. If you try to break up with somebody, especially when they have a history of being abusive to you in any way, this is my suggestion to anybody who is listening. If you are trying to leave your abuser, do not tell them. Find a way to get away from them. If you have to go behind their back and come up with a plan to leave, do that. Under no circumstances tell your abuser that you are leaving. Um, I can't even describe to you what I had to do to finally get away from my ex-husband this time for good, because he was so dangerous towards me. But your life means so much more than anything else. And this has been my episode of the Dishaye Stevenson story. If you would like to know more, go look up her name, hear more about the story. But I felt the need to do this for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you guys for tuning into Life with Anita. And I just hope that somebody is listening, that you are inspired, that you understand that you mean so much more. Love yourself enough. If somebody's not treating you appropriately, then you need to definitely leave them. Thank you guys for tuning in to Life with Anita. This has been the Dishaye Stevenson episode. Have a great day.